Hi, welcome back to my decorating series. We're going to go inside and go to the last room on the 12th floor for a coffee bar. I actually took a peek at the room first to kind of give myself a sense of the space before I decided to resize the room. I actually had come up with an idea for this room going into it about the layout, so I knew I wanted a rectangle, and I knew I wanted it to be on the small side because this room is definitely meant for, having company over, something kind of cozy and warm and just, I don't know. I grew up in the 90s with coffee shops and just that vibe of like cozy seating and eclectic furniture and that kind of thing. And so I wanted it to be kind of that vibe. And so it made it a little challenging with the stuff that I end up putting in this room, and definitely difficult to move around in the end. But I really liked working in a space like this, the shape, the size, and then trying to build, again, kind of different little areas using these beams. And I knew I wanted it to still be rustic. Not quite as rustic as like the tavern or the trophy room, but definitely still wood tones, earth tones, and textures. I also knew I wanted a whole wall of windows, but not the windows that I normally do, even though I looked at them at first. And now that I've got the beams and the doors and windows down, I'm just deciding on the floors and walls and ceiling. So still with wood and natural looking materials, but a little bit brighter than the other spaces were. I didn't want it to feel as heavy. I imagine this space would be used mostly in the mornings, maybe the morning after a big party, or just to wake up and kind of go someplace, grab a cup of coffee, sit and kind of look out the windows as like the sun is coming up or something to that effect. So I also didn't want the ceiling to be too heavy. I did look at those darker wood tones. Oh, and I did pick one. I thought I picked a lighter tone, but maybe I'm misremembering. Obviously, I'm misremembering. So, oh, that's right, because I went with the lighter tones on the walls. I was like, this room feels brighter. What am I remembering? I'm remembering the walls. I actually was trying to get these walls, the wooden, like, separations to line up in a way that I liked, and ended up lining them up in the corners because it wouldn't center around the door quite right. It wouldn't center around the beams quite right, the windows. So I ended up lining them up to the corners, and that worked for me. And then I wanted to make sure I had some cozy spots. I wanted to have multiple little spots, partially because it reminded me of a coffee shop, but also like, thinking about having like a party in the tavern. The next morning, you'd still want, like something inviting and kind of in that same vibe. So I went with enough seating for a lot of people. This is definitely a luxury home and not something the average person would have, but we can have it because it's a magical fairy tale fantasy land that we can do whatever the heck we want with our house and our spaces. So I went over the top for like something you'd think of as a house and kind of combined it with what you might find as a business. And I wanted to continue the mismatched furniture, the woods, the rustic, and just play around with some things that I didn't use in other places. This couch in particular, I actually really liked that orange couch that you get in Storybook Vale. I think it's a craftable, but it was huge. And because I decided to make this room relatively small, it was difficult to fit in here. But I wanted the, mishmash of tables and chairs and rugs, pillows. I really love that tea table set from Mulan. It looks really formal, but in this space, it makes it look a little bit more casual. And I really liked that. And then I had to pick out some carpets, because while I wanted it rustic and wooden, I wanted it cozy. If you could add like throw blankets and pillows everywhere, I'd probably do that too, but you can't really do that in this game, so we can just, work with what we have as usual. But I loved these lights for this space. I really like the feel of them. And, oh yeah, here we go. We needed some foliage. I was like, what am I looking for next? It was actually kind of hard putting some plants in here because since this space was so small, it was difficult to find things that I could tuck into little nooks and corners. But I did want to have some stuff in here to give it a little bit of greenery. And then books. I knew I wanted to stick at least one bookshelf in here because books and coffee just go together. Not to say this is just coffee. You could have tea in here too, but like warm, cozy beverages and snuggly spots to sit in and hang out, maybe have, you know, breakfast or a little snack or something. But I didn't want to make everything skewed and cockeyed. I did want to have some variety in the layout of stuff. Oh, and I really love how that coffee cart just tucked into those beams right there. It made it fit really snug against the wall. I mean, it clips a little bit, but not terribly so. And so I was super excited that that worked out that way. Now I'm just trying to add some last minute touches and decoration and all of that to just fill in like just some little spots. Oh yeah, I love that lion head above the beverage cart. I just love that. And the beverage thing, or it's a station, I guess it's not really a cart. It's not the right vibe, but it works in the space anyway. It's not wood, it's not brown, you know, it's Art Deco. And I was worried that since it was our only option, I decided to add butterflies. It might be ridiculous, but I kind of love it. But I was worried the Art Deco vibe wouldn't go with all of the other rustic stuff, and I think it still works out okay. Oh, yep. Looking for book piles. Just things to tuck in little corners and spots to make it feel like people have just kind of come and gone without feeling too fussed about keeping it pristine. And now we get into making coffee and kind of breakfast stuff. I decided to go through all of the lists just to see what things look like they might be something you'd grab for a quick bite in the morning with a cup of coffee. And so some of these dishes may not actually be the right dishes for that, but they look right. So I was definitely trying to look at the pictures. Oh yeah, some bagels, some donuts. I made a few things that I don't end up putting in. Once I'm done cooking here and I go back to the room, it's actually kind of hard to decorate with the butterflies flying around. I actually had to remove one at one point to make things behave as far as being able to pick them up and manipulate them around the room. So if you are thinking about adding elements like the fireflies or butterflies or anything to a space, sometimes it's best to put those in last because sometimes it can be really hard. Yeah, I was trying to move that coffee maker for Monsters Inc. around and was struggling to grab it and the counter with the butterflies flying around. And then also trying to put the coffees and teas and snacks and stuff. It was kind of difficult getting... Oh, and the beams made it hard too. It was hard to put things in places because the stuff was in the way. So just something to keep in mind if you're thinking about using those elements in your own builds. All right, well, let's go inside and check it out. This is the last room of the 12th floor. It's been quite the adventure to build in a way that I've not been building before. The rustic stuff is really different than my normal aesthetic choices, but I had a good time doing it. And I really do like how all of these little spaces turned out and how they all tie in together, but are still definitely their own vibe and space in the end. I do love using these beams and the butterflies. I really liked putting them in here. There's something kind of magical about waking up and having a cup of coffee and just having all of these butterflies while you're watching the sun come up. I don't know. There's just something about it that really appeals to me. But it definitely makes it hard to move around and see in the space since I did try and work in such tight quarters. As you can see, my character is having trouble getting around the chairs and stuff. But I wouldn't change it, even though it's a struggle, because I love how cozy this feels. This feels like You could wake up and still be in your PJs or throw on a robe and some slippers and just come tuck yourself into a little corner, grab a book, grab a coffee, have a bite. And then I really like how it looks in the lighting at night because it just feels like it wouldn't be an overwhelming space to sit in. I know that there's a lot of people that don't drink caffeinated beverages late at night, but like I could drink a cup of coffee and still go to bed on time. So I could see grabbing a cup of coffee or even just tea or a hot chocolate and coming in this space in the evening and just being really serene here. So while it is tricky to move around and see, I really love how it turned out in the end. I love the eclectic stuff. Oh, that little table right there, I picked it in particular because it's got books underneath of it. So a little cup of coffee, little snack, little book, some windows, some butterflies, a few touches of plants in here, and just the thought, it invokes that feeling of coffee shops from when I was a kid. And yeah, just had a good time putting the 12th floor together. Looking forward to getting away from the rustic stuff for a bit, but had a good time challenging myself to use a lot of objects that I wouldn't normally put anywhere else, but we have an abundance of in the game. So it was a good time, and I'm looking forward to moving on to the next floor, the 13th floor, you guys. That's it for today's decorating adventure. If you liked this video, a thumbs up is a great way to let me know, and a subscription will keep you up to date on my latest shenanigans. If you want to hang out with me live, I stream on YouTube and Twitch on Thursday evenings and middays on Sunday. I hope you have a lovely day, night, time, wherever you are, whenever you are, and I'll see you next time.